Speaking of, I guess, expanding the map, Kamala Harris was down in Texas for a big rally with Beyonce and also with Michelle Obama, trying to boost Colin Allred's chances in the Senate against Ted Cruz. Michelle Obama, kind of following in her husband's footsteps, had some very specific messaging towards men. Let's take a listen to a little bit of that.
But to anyone out there thinking about sitting out this election or voting for Donald Trump or a third-party candidate in protest because you're fed up, let me warn you, your rage does not exist in a vacuum. If we don't get this election right, your wife, your daughter, your mother, we as women will become collateral damage to your rage. Are you as men prepared to look into the eyes of the women and children you love and tell them that you supported this assault on our safety? And to the women listening, we have every right to demand that the men in our lives do better by us. We have to, and how it will affect every single woman in your life. Your girlfriend could be the one in legal jeopardy if she needs a pill from out of state or overseas, or if she has to travel across state lines because the local clinic closed up. Your wife or mother could be the ones at higher risk of dying from undiagnosed cervical cancer because they have no access to regular gynecological care. Your daughter could be the one too terrified to call the doctor if she's bleeding during an unexpected pregnancy. And this will not just affect women, it will affect you and your sons. The devastating consequences of teen pregnancy won't just be borne by young girls, but also by the young men who are the fathers. They too will have their dreams of going to college. Their entire future is totally upended by an unwanted pregnancy. Her pressure dropping as she loses more and more blood, or some unforeseen infection spreads and her doctors aren't sure if they can act. You will be the one praying that it's not too late. You will be the one pleading for somebody, anybody, to do something. And then there is the tragic but very real possibility that in the worst case scenario, you just might be the one holding flowers at the funeral. You might be the one left to raise your children alone. Do not put our lives in the hands of politicians, mostly men, who have no clue or do not care about what we as women are going through.
So there were kind of two parts to that message. The first part where she's very like, you have every reason, women, to expect your men to do better, and then you need to do better. The second part, I think, much more effective, where she's like personalizing it and talking about some of the most dire consequences of losing the right to abortion care. But I mean, listen, I don't think that when you're out there on this issue, right, we know that this is not the number one issue for men. Right?
Literally not the number one.
And so I don't even know if this message really is for men, but it comes off similar to Obama's of lecturing.
Hectoring and lecturing. That's
telling
what these Obamas
men, like,
do
you're
best.
thinking about this wrong, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so, like I said, the second part of that, I think, is actually very effective. I think it's consistent with the way Kamala Harris has talked about abortion, how some of the most effective surrogates have talked about the specific consequences which we have seen, and the way that, yes, if you're a man, this could affect somebody you love in your life. I think that's effective. I think anytime you go on the direction of could even be construed as lecturing, I think you're on very shaky ground.
Yeah, and that's why I was honestly so pissed off by it, because I just hate this hectoring and lecturing, specifically from the Obamas, where you have these people who are in charge of the country for 8 years. And then this, as the male shift has happened, and there's a lot of reasons as to why, but abortion is a key reason why a lot of women are voting. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But this whole, we have reason to expect better from the men in our lives. And it's, what does she say? The consequences of your rage. The thing is, and we just had a whole conversation about this with the Trump thing, whenever people are mad, validating why they are angry, specifically in a small d Democratic context, is really important. Dismissing and saying you're wrong is quite literally one of the most least effective political strategies that is out there. So in general, being in the position of lecturing people, especially from the heights of people who were in charge of the country, just completely like counterproductive. Now, the latter part of that message, I agree. I mean, that's one of those where the most effective abortion ads I've seen is when it's a couple, and who was that? I forget. The people who spoke at the DNC, and there was a man and a wife, and she needed like an abortion or something, and then the doctors denied her one. She was left with consequences for that. And
I think
he's
it was a woman
up there.
in Texas too.
Yeah, it was a
wasn't
Texas woman, and the husband's up there being like, my wife and I wanted more children, and this is that's a powerful ad. That's a family ad. That's one that looks at, it as a unit. This was very much like kind of both pitting men and women against each other, but more importantly, it was lecturing against the men. And so I think that the most effective is to message like to that unit as a family, specifically people who are in a marriage. And, it really also celebrated this like hyper individualism, which is that whole teen pregnancy message. I don't even necessarily disagree. It's more just like putting it in that way is, I think, quite gross. And it's like
which part?
Just the part where it's like, oh, their lives will be ruined by having a baby. I just think that's, I don't know. That to me, that one, it reads wrong just because it very much looks at it as like as something that will, quote, ruin your life. And there are a lot of consequences to teen pregnancy, et cetera. But I just think talking about it in that way, very much like centering the teenager and the teenage girl and boy and like their ability to go on and like do whatever they want in this like individualism, that kind of does validate some of the pro-life way that people criticize this. But I don't know. The whole thing to me just read wrong. The best part of their message is just trying to message to people as a unit and why it's consequential for you. But outside of that, lecturing and putting people against each other, I always think is the wrong move.
Kamala Harris actually did a very good job at the debate talking about this, and she had those specifics. I mean, one of the most effective ads we've ever seen on the topic of abortion was the young woman in Kentucky who had been raped repeatedly by her stepfather, and who said, "Listen, I would not have had the ability to have choices if it was Daniel Cameron who was the one who was running for governor." And you end up with a Democrat winning the state of Kentucky, focused on an issue of abortion. So yeah, that part of the message I do think is very effective, but the other part, not so much. At the same time, we got a little hot mic moment from Kamala Harris. She's at a bar with Gretchen Whitmer and seems to get caught saying something like, we need to make up ground with male voters. And then she says like, oh, there's microphones around. Shit, LOL. Let's take a listen to how this all went down.
So, everyone's trying to set me Yeah. Oh, we have microphones and I was listening to everything. Oh, I didn't realize that. Okay. So, well,
You'll
now you
bleep
tell
my
us.
F words.
We just told all the family secrets. Shit. Anyway, it's good to see you.
Yeah, so the audio is muffled, but it's basically we need to move ground among men.
Ground among men. Okay, yeah. So anyway, some indication that which, I mean, we've seen, actually she's doing a podcast.
It's not a secret. It makes
it's like, not a secret. Yeah, but I mean, to hear her acknowledge it, whatever, it's a thing, right? She got caught saying something she didn't mean to say publicly. So it's a thing. But yeah, she's doing the Shannon Sharp podcast today.
Club Shay Shay.
Club Shay Shay. So we'll
Shannon
take a listen to that tonight. And she's, enlisted, I guess, Tim Walz was playing Madden football on Twitch.
Yeah, although that was a bomb. Only they didn't have that many streamers on it.
Really?
This isn't like Tim Walz derangement syndrome.
AOC and Tim Walz
Objectively,
playing
it was like 10,000, which I mean, we get more on that than our live streams. Like that's
not impressive. Those are not impressive.
It's not good numbers.
She's made a number of concerted efforts to try to go into more male spaces and, put out surrogates that she thinks will be effective, et cetera. So clearly they realize this is an area that they've got to shore up in order to be to prevail on Election Day.
Yes, I want to get to a clip too, talking of something that I referenced earlier. Here is John Fetterman talking to a New York Times reporter on their podcast, specifically about that cultural phenomenon I referenced earlier and explaining to her what truck nuts are. Let's take a listen.
I'll never forget, I live directly across the street from the steel mill, and we were doing an event there for Clinton. And I asked the union president, I'm like, hey, where we are on Trump? And he's like, yeah, probably half or 60%, two-thirds are voting for him. And I was like, oh, that sucks. And then immediately there was a guy getting off, and he had a truck, and he had truck nuts on it. You know what truck nuts are?
Do I look like I know what truck nuts are?
It's balls hung on the hitch of a truck. And he honked and he was like, "Go Trump," as he drove by. And it's like, hey, we're in trouble.
Yeah, it does not surprise me that the truck nuts guys are for Trump.
Yeah.
I actually respect the fact that she was like,
Do I look like him?
do I look like the kind of person who knows what truck nuts are?
I mean, I wear a suit every day. I know what truck nuts are. It's not that difficult, right? I mean, I guess I was raised in Texas, I remember the first time I ever saw a pair. I don't know. I mean, to me, culturally, I think that was important. And look, you can give it to Fetterman. He did win the state by 5. He says that they're in trouble. What else did he say? He said he's like, the level of Trump support is astonishing. I believe that was the word that he used, specifically where he lives, in Pittsburgh, or in the Steel area, which is interesting. I'm curious, there's been this is pure PA politics.
Yeah.
Harris just recently released an ad, centering herself around the city of Philadelphia.
Yeah,
and it was
that.
Celebrating Philly. And
It was during an Eagles game or
exactly,
something.
It was during an Eagles game. But I was like, culturally, this is very interesting because there is such a massive cultural divide between Philly, the mainline suburbs. You've got the urban population, you've got the white college-educated, the celebration of the city of Philadelphia, and then you've got Pittsburgh and all the other areas that are rural in PA that are much more culturally conservative. So it does seem like they are picking sides. I'm not sure which way it's going to go.
Well, Pittsburgh is also quite democratic.
Yeah, the city
itself
right.
and the surrounding suburbs are quite, democratic in general. But yeah, I mean, between Philly and Pittsburgh, you have a lot of rural, very conservative areas.
They call it Pennsyltucky.
And I remember after when Hillary was running in 2016, wasn't it Schumer that said that thing about for every person we lose in rural Pennsylvania, we're going to pick up 2 in the suburbs.
Yes,
and didn't work out for Hillary, but hey, it worked out for Joe Biden in 2020. It may well work out for Kamala Harris this time around.
Possible.
We'll see if that electoral calculation has blossomed for them. But yeah, I guess a real cultural divide on display there between the New York Times lady and John Fetterman.
Absolutely. All right, last part is Beyonce also was at that event. Let's take a listen to what she had to say.
I'm not here as a politician. I'm here as a mother. A mother who cares deeply about the world my children and all of our children live in. A world where we have the freedom to control our bodies. A world where we're not divided. Our past, our present, our future merge. And we need you. It's time to sing a new song. A song that began 248 years ago. The old notes of downfall, discord, despair no longer resonate. Our generations of loved ones before us are whispering a prophecy, a quest, a calling, an anthem.
I don't know. It makes me nervous, all the celebrity
It was dull.
stuff makes me so nervous
Leo,
because it does remind me so much of Hillary 2016.
Leo came out to endorse Kamala.
Who?
Leo DiCaprio.
Oh.
Kamala.
I saw a lot of jokes about that.
Who else? Yeah, right.
First time he backed a woman who was over 25, basically.
No, it's he saw 2024 and got confused. That's just
Anyway,
a joke.
Leo likes
Leo, I love you.
of age, but young. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. We'll see. It does seem very 2016, and she got the Springsteen rally with Obama, the exact same thing that happened in 2016. So I don't know. Going to Houston. I mean, both of these candidates now. It's like, Kamala, why are you in Houston? Trump, why are you going to New Mexico?
Yeah.
What's going on here?
I mean, Texas makes a little bit of sense because of Colorado Red is one of their best chances to steal a seat from Republicans. And I think they also liked the backdrop of Texas has been the site of some of the most horrifying stories of women, women's health. And so I think they liked that backdrop as well. But yeah, I mean, Kamala's not going to win Texas.
Right, exactly. So. Every time somebody talks about the Senate races, I just always think, your job's not to get the Senate elected. Your job is to, be president. So anyway, I don't know.
She maybe had some fundraisers. There's a lot of money there too. She had some fundraisers
but
there
it's like
also.
when Trump flies all the way to Montana to do a rally. I'm like, bro, it's fucking Montana. Less than 1 million people live in Montana. What are you doing? It's like, or Coachella in California. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I mean, but we just talked about the nationalization. That's certainly part of it. Okay, we've talked way too much today, so we can't do Michigan today.
We'll do it
We'll
tomorrow.
do it tomorrow. Promise. Sorry, everybody. Don't freak out. Don't leave any crazy comments. What happened to Michigan? It's not being censored. Let's get to endorsement.
Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show. Help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.